up on here, so just want to make sure that that's the right thing that we're looking at. And I believe that this should show the presentation. If it does not, please unmute yourself and let me know. But otherwise, please stay on mute until we reach the public comment period. Welcome to this public information session for our Woodbridge Energy Center Title V renewal. My name is Scott Schellberg. I am the Director of State Government and Regulatory Affairs with Competitive Power Ventures. In a little bit, you're going to be hearing from my colleague, Preston Patterson, who is our Director of Reliability and Asset Management. It is about 6:04 on July 27th, 2022, and we will get right into the agenda and our short presentation before we open it up for the public comment period. This is the agenda. We will go through just some ground rules for the public comment period right off the bat, the environmental justice law, and then Preston will take us through some of the information about the Woodbridge Energy Center, as well as the Title V permit, and then we will open it up for a public input period. So first and foremost, as I said at the beginning when people logged on, and in case you missed it, this information session is being recorded and will be submitted to the Department of Environmental Protection. I respectfully ask that everyone stays on mute until the public comment period begins. And at that point, I will ask anyone who wants to make a comment to just use the to either raise your hand or use the emoji thing to raise your hand, and I'll old school write the names down, and we'll make sure that everyone who wants to have a chance to say something will say something. Everybody will have a chance to speak for 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, I'll let you know that we've hit 3 minutes and give you about 20 seconds to 30 seconds to wrap up. After the wrap up period, I will be forced to mute you. We have over 25 people in this meeting, and so I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. For this meeting, we will not be responding to questions and comments. Like I said, this will be recorded, submitted to DEP, and we will take it from there. And of course, what is always most helpful is written comments. So I'll try to do my best to take notes on everything that's said and asked. But if you have written comments, those are always really helpful, and please feel free to submit them to me. It's skjellberg@cpv.com. Sorry, it is not the easiest name. It's pronounced Schellberg, so I always thank my father for that one. All right, kicking off. We are here today, first and foremost, because of the environmental justice law that Governor Murphy signed into law in September of 2020. It requires the DEP to evaluate environmental and public health impacts of certain facilities in overburdened communities. As it says, an overburdened community is any community that has at least 30% of the households qualifying as low income, at least 40% of the residents identifying as minority or as members of a state-recognized tribal community, or at least 40% of the households have limited English proficiency. After this law was signed, there was an administrative order, number 2021-25 that requires facilities like the Woodbridge Energy Center to facilitate meaningful opportunities for communities to engage in the permitting decisions. And so that is why we are all here today. And then just a high level who we are. I'm sorry, I just heard someone join. So I just want to make sure I let them in. Sorry about that. And we are Competitive Power Ventures. We have a headquarters in both Braintree, Massachusetts and Silver Spring, Maryland. We have been a developer, owner, and manager of electric generation facilities for over 2 decades. We build natural gas plants like the Woodbridge Energy Center, as well as solar and wind facilities. We really pride ourselves on the relationships that we build and maintain with our host communities, as well as our ability to build and operate the most efficient and reliable energy resources. We are trying to grow as a company, trying to do more projects, and trying to do everything that we can to keep our existing projects reliable, safe, and as environmentally friendly as possible. And so that is a little bit about Competitive Power Ventures. At this point, I will turn it over to Preston, and I will unmute him and wish that I had, actually, I will ask Preston to unmute himself. I believe that that should work.
Hey, Scott, I'm here. Do you want to keep the slides up for everybody?
Yep.
Thank you.
There we go.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Preston Patterson. I'm in the asset management group here for CPV Woodbridge Energy Center. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the plant. The CPV Woodbridge Energy Center, as you know, is located there in Woodbridge, New Jersey. It came online in 2016. It's a 725 megawatt natural gas fired combined cycle power plant that uses 2 gas turbines and a steam turbine. The steam turbine is powered by the exhaust energy from the gas turbines, which makes it very efficient. It provides dispatchable power to support the grid reliability and facilitate the integration of additional renewables in the future. As I mentioned, it uses advanced gas turbine technology, some of the latest technology out there since it's only a few years old by General Electric. It's extremely efficient and puts out very low emissions. It's one of the most efficient plants in the state and in PJM. And just for some scale, relative to the average plant, it avoids an estimated 6 million tons of CO2, which is the equivalent of taking more than 1.4 million passenger vehicles off the road each year. CPV Woodbridge reuses gray water from the nearby Middlesex County Utility Authority water treatment facility, which would otherwise go straight into the river. We repurpose this water and use it in our process. We purchased and built a special pump house that allows us to do that with MCUA. And we use about $900,000 worth of payments to them annually to deliver what was essentially a waste product prior to that. We're a part of the community. We employ 22 employees with high quality jobs. We have programs in place where we seek to do charitable donations. We've been focusing on education and first responders programs. We're always looking for ways to give back to the community. During our periodic maintenance periods, sometimes it will be hundreds of construction jobs that come up during our maintenance cycles to help support some of that work. And really, we facilitated the cleanup and conversion of what was once a long time contaminated former military armament site prior to us developing it and turning it into a reliable power station. And we continue that development with helping support the Woodbridge Riverside Park. On to the next slide. So the reason we're here today is really to talk about the Title V permit. This is a process. This presentation is a part of this process for us this time. The Title V permit refers to Title V of the Clean Air Act, which is a federal program which is allocated at the state level. And it's really aimed at controlling and limiting pollution sources. What we're looking to do is to renew our existing permit, which was originally issued in 2012 as we were developing this plant. This is part of a normal calendar-based renewal period. We're not looking to increase any emissions or add any new emission sources. This is strictly to renew the existing permit for this facility. Scott, if you want to go to the next slide, please. I want to tell you guys a little bit about RGGI, in case you may not be aware. Woodbridge Energy is part of RGGI, which stands for the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. This is a multi-state market-based program that is a carbon dioxide cap program that we are a part of. And this year alone, Woodbridge Energy is expected to contribute more than $30 million into this program, which that money is allocated back to New Jersey to fund clean energy, greenhouse gas reduction strategies, supporting state goals, and really enhancing the stewardship and restoration of state forests and tidal marshes. I think that's a great program. And that's really the end of my part of the presentation, Scott. I'll turn it back over to you.
Sure. And I just wanted to let everyone know this was in the public posting that both went out to the Courier News. It was posted on our website, on the DEP website. But just so everyone knows, there is a 60-day comment period. We're actually in the middle of it right now. It began on June 27th, ends on August 27th. Written comments are always, I find, the most useful, but so please feel free to submit them directly to me. My email address is on there, as well as our mailing address. And I will leave this slide up for as much of the presentation as I can. I will need to just close it right now as we will shift into the public comment period. So I will stop presenting for a second. And that's sorry about that. All right, so I will leave that up, and whatever works easiest, if you want to drop it in the chat or raise your hand like this, or raise your hand using the react button, please let me know and we will go through. I will be using a handy iPhone timer, and I was also, if I'm not always looking at the cameras, because I will be trying to take notes and keep up with everything. And let's see. So I see John was the first one to raise hands. And of course, if for any reason, if you're on the phone or anything like that, just you can speak up and I will make sure to get you on the list.
Hi,
I'm
on the phone.
I see a 908 number. If I could just get your name.
Nina. I'll mute myself and wait for the rest of the calls.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I see John and David, and so we can kick it off with John if that works. Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening. Having lived in Woodbridge for all my 40 years, I've seen hurricanes such as Eta, Sandy, and Irene have a devastating impact on the lives of my family, friends, and neighbors. Is Competitive Power Ventures aware of the impact these storms have had on our community here in Woodbridge and surrounding communities? Are you aware that tragically lives were lost during these ever-intensifying climate reaction events? Has CPV done, or has CPV had any research done on the health impacts related to your operations? Is the public afforded access to that data, and where we may review it if so? Has Competitive Power Ventures done, or has CPV commissioned any research or collection of data and or exact statistics regarding emissions from its KSV plant? Is CPV aware of the criteria for communities in New Jersey to be designated environmental justice or overburdened communities? Are you cognizant of the number of minority households in Woodbridge and what percentage of our overall population minorities make up? Would the reissuing of this permit put in jeopardy, be inconsistent with, or interfere with statewide emission standards and limits? Air pollution can trigger asthma attacks and is also linked to premature death through heart attacks and respiratory problems. During COVID and this public health emergency, the impacts of air pollution can be deadly. New Jersey needs to move quickly to reduce air pollution, not continue the trend of not only receiving failing grades by a multitude of environmental agencies when it comes to pollution and air quality, but also perpetuating environmental racism against the ethnic and minority populations of Woodbridge and surrounding areas who are burdened with the impacts of New Jersey's many fossil fuel projects disproportionately. Woodbridge has a close proximity to multiple sources of pollution, as well as a high percentage of minority households. Residents currently experience high levels of pollution from numerous sources, including already existing power plants, heavy industry, multiple airports, and major roadways and vehicle emissions. The approval and addition of future gas power plants, as well as this one, would increase the pollution and health burdens in this already affected community and those adjacent and surrounding communities, and should not be permitted. Climate reaction is not an issue to be dealt with at a more convenient or politically or industrially expedient time. It's an issue that adversely affects Woodbridge both economically and environmentally right now, presently and currently. Thank you. I look forward to hearing your responses.
Thank you so much, John. And I see the second hand is David Hughes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, very good. So yes, as you said, I'm David Hughes. I'm here representing the Rutgers AUP-AFT Faculty Union in Newark, New Brunswick, and Camden. I also am an anthropologist in New Brunswick, and I teach about climate change and energy. I think the presentation made a good case for not allowing a firm other than CPV to build a power plant. That firm, according to the presentation, would emit 6 million more tons of CO2 than CPV. I didn't catch how many tons CPV will emit, but it's more than zero. So I would suggest we build no power plant there for anybody. One of the things about these presentations is they tend to act as if we're not on planet Earth. So this summer, temperatures hit Fahrenheit in Karachi, Pakistan, 115, 112 in Spain. It's going to be 111 in the next couple of days in Portland, Oregon. They only reached 102 here, but just wait. So we cannot afford to raise New Jersey's carbon emissions anymore. We cannot afford another methane-fired power plant. And by the way, I'd ask CPV to go back and look at methane leakage, because they were only counting CO2 out the exhaust pipe. But we know a great deal by now about how much methane leaks through pipelines and wellheads and so on the way to the exhaust pipe. So I wouldn't trust their figures at all in terms of the climate impact of this plant. I can't stress enough that we are in a climate emergency. And it's completely irresponsible for New Jersey, for Woodbridge, for Keysby to think about putting in another natural gas plant. I would say that if we had no renewables being built, because the situation is that desperate. However, we do have renewables being built. We have offshore wind coming on across the Northeast, and particularly in New Jersey. So another question I have is, how do we know that this plant is necessary, that this electricity is necessary at all? It seems to be that CPV wants to make a buck by putting megawatts out on the grid and duplicating what we're going to be constructing in renewables. And that points to the obvious way forward, which is to build no more natural gas plants. We thought that the master plan, the energy master plan for the state, would ensure that, and instead to build renewables. So I'm asking the people in the room, the decision makers in the room, not to allow this project to go forward. I should think that your children would want you to say that as well. And the people in Karachi, Portland, and Spain would want you as well. So it is irresponsible. Please deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I do just want to clarify that this is not for a permit for a new power plant. This is the renewal for the existing facility.
Well, deny it all. Thank you.
Next up, we have Celeste.
Hi, Scott. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm just making sure I'm doing this right. Okay, two things. I have it is a question concerning how you're measuring the pollution. How are they measuring the volcanic organic compounds? I know that there are cameras you can use that would measure the, some of this comes up as invisible. And I know that right now the existing ones are producing approximately 33 tons of VOCs. So we're dealing with a lot of this particulates so that's a question I have for you, but I will email you the questions. Anyway, another comment, I'm from Woodbridge Township, Colonia specifically. When I heard about all that was going on, that the expansion, I know we're not dealing with the expansion right now, but this is a general question to ask you. I emailed our mayor wondering, had gone on their website, looking at a YouTube video they showed that came from 2019, showing this wonderful Woodbridge Raritan park, waterfront park that was going to be built, and how lovely and how walking trails, all these beautiful things. So I emailed the mayor. That was 2019. It's now 2022. What happened? Well, his comment was this to me. He said that basically this environmental cleanup, he explained it was a radioactive area, so I know the background there. I won't, take that time. But he explained that this was not going to get cleaned up unless you're your private company came in and did this redevelopment and of the site into the power plant. Well, it's 4 years later, and this area is still contaminated. So it was a broken promise. Let's just put it what it is. And nothing has been cleaned up there. It's 4 years later, and most likely it was just going to be abandoned. And anyway, to be very honest with you, even if they could clean it up, which it looks like CPV is not going to do this, then to add on more pollutants, I wouldn't want to be walking around that area riding a bicycle and walking around in that area, unless I'm going to be wearing a mask for the rest of, existence. So that was my comment, that we were told it was a broken promise. We were told this was going to become a beautiful waterfront park. It was going to be cleaned up by the private company, CPV, and it has not occurred. So that's my 2 questions, and I will email you more questions. I don't want to take your time. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Celeste. And next, we have, I hope I am saying this correctly, I'll say Rano Banerjee.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, so my name is Rano Banerjee. I live in Plainsboro, New Jersey, which is also in Middlesex County. It's about 19 miles from CPV. I do have a few concerns about ongoing operations at the plant, and I think as the other person had mentioned, I think one of the big underreported risks to continually operating natural gas plants is the fact that no one seems to be really measuring how much methane leaks through the whole supply chain of pulling the methane and natural gas from the ground, supplying it to the location and actually burning it. I really question if this information is actually being kept, and if it is being kept, if it's being aggregated with the other natural gas plants that are operating in the area. I mean, methane is so much more potent than carbon dioxide, and it seems like no one's really measuring this or talking about it. It's a very underreported risk. I think continually operating these plants are very risky. Another question I have is, this plant has to get renewal every 5 years. Is it the intention to keep this plant open indefinitely? Certainly, right now we have international targets to have 0 emissions by 2050. Is there any kind of a plan to sunset this operations at CPV? There's a lot of questions about the contamination that's there. There's a local politician that had mentioned that the adjacent site is actually unsuited for any other purpose other than building another plant. Has the ongoing operation of CPV contributed to this? Would it be possible to build something else there after this plant closes? You mentioned that there's 22 high quality jobs on site. How many people have actually worked there since the plant is open? Have those people been there the whole time, or are there significant turnovers? What assurances do we have that these are actually high quality jobs? Has there been any people resigning from health problems or for any other reason? And do we actually measure how far this particulate matter spreads from this plant? I'm only 19 miles away. I know there's a lot of other plants. Can this type of information and the impacts to the communities actually accurately be measured, because they're just spit out into the environment? So like I said, I've got a lot of concerns. I'm sure other people might have other things to add. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And next, Tina Wisehouse.
Hi, good evening. My name's Tina Wisehouse. I live in Highland Park, which is about 5 miles from the site of the first power plant and potentially the second power plant. And all of our residents and schools are within that 5 mile radius. We have learned, as we have educated ourselves about the new power plant, that there are currently 6 power plants in the area. Your proposed one would be the 7th. So although each one is looked at separately under the environmental justice law, there should be a cumulative impact of all of adding any additional. And we would like to see you do that. And if you did do that, I don't think that you would be building any more power plants. I am the chairperson of Sustainable Highland Park, and I was trained by Al Gore as a climate educator. And one thing that I learned, and that many people know right now, is that burning fossil fuels is the main driver of climate change. When I was educated back in 2006, there were 381 parts per million carbon dioxide in the air, and 16 years later, there is 421 parts per million carbon dioxide. 350 parts per million carbon dioxide is a safe level, or below it. We are clearly going in the wrong direction. So although we're not here to talk about the second power plant, which I am opposed to, and help pass resolutions in our town to oppose it, I want to say that this renewal is an opportunity to reconsider this power plant and the damage that is doing as you spew not only greenhouse gases, but nitrous oxide, VOCs, particulate matter into the air. As clean as your process is, you are still burning fossil fuels, and that is still driving climate change, and we are in a climate emergency. So I want to ask you one simple question, which is when I go to your website, I see solar plants, 2 of them. I saw a wind power plant, and talk about decarbonizing. CPV talks about decarbonizing the electricity sector by 2035. So I want to ask you to have CPV commit to turning this first Woodbridge Energy Center into a solar plant. And I have no idea whether we need the power or not. And David Hughes raised that question. I think it's a good question. And we do not know how much methane is being spewed because it's not being measured. However, you know how to make solar plants. So I would think that CPV would be very proud to give leadership to actually convert a fossil fuel plant, no matter how efficient it is a fossil fuel plant, into a clean energy renewable plant that could provide the energy that it does.
This is the 3-minute warning. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's my question. Will CPV commit to transitioning to converting the first power plant that we're talking about today into a solar plant? Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to give Nina on the phone a chance.
Good evening. My name's Nina. I live in Old Bridge, New Jersey, not more than, I think, 5.5 miles away from the Keensey plant. And I wanted to say that, well, we all need energy, especially after the last 2 weeks of a heat wave here in New Jersey, and it being well over 100 degrees, hitting well over 100 degrees for a lion's share of the last 14 days. We do need to look to your expertise to change over from gas-powered, which is adding to the environmental burden, to the solar and wind energy projects right here in New Jersey. I know you have a project in the Jersey Shore. However, it's pretty easy for you to create an array on all the apartment complexes in Woodbridge You could pay the same amount of taxes and create a clean energy thing. Here in New Jersey, by the way, we had more than 55,000 people last year diagnosed with cancer. This was in the middle of our COVID crisis. It was actually lower than it typically is. However, Middlesex County had over 8,000 people diagnosed in 2021, which was more than what would be expected per county population. We don't know what the cause is. We do know that we have a heavy burden here in the Raritan Bay area. We have a huge amount of industry, which includes your power plant. We are also here in Woodbridge have a cancer cluster, which is unknown at this time. They clearly ruled out radiation caused by radon gas, but that doesn't mean in that building. But that doesn't mean that the downwind effects of the air quality from your plants are not affecting or causing populations of people to be exposed. Last year, New Jersey had more than 550,000 people diagnosed and are in active treatment for COPD. More than 20,000 people died from heart attacks. All of these things have added burdens because of the air quality that we breathe. It is not a surprise to any of us here in the meeting, including yourselves, that you know that when you create particulate and air quality, you add to the air quality burden, that you're going to develop a population of people that are going to be affected negatively, animals, our lives. And as one of the callers or in the people in the thing in the question and answer spoke about, we don't need to wear masks. And by the way, we won't be wearing masks. We'll be wearing respirators. This is really not a healthy way to live. Obviously, you've chosen the Woodbridge area, despite the fact that there's already to have a power plant originally, and I'm not even talking about the new one that you're attempting to get a past approval. The one you put it in Woodbridge because the population of people, as you discussed earlier, are a population of people who by and large have less likelihood to
This is the 3-minute warning.
However, I don't notice you putting in power plants. Thank you very much, sir. I don't notice you putting in power plants in the more expensive neighborhoods where there are rivers to where you could build your beautiful cleaning of water. Like down in Princeton, I don't see you putting in power plants in Mendham and Morristown and Bridgewater. I see you putting them in the poorest populations in the regions where we are least likely to speak up as a community. And I'd really appreciate the DEP, the state of New Jersey, and the entire population here to stop allowing for this continued contamination and exposure to all of us, my children, your children, our grandchildren, ourselves. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. And next on the list is Charlie Cradaville.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name's Charlie Cradaville. I'm the Central Jersey organizer for Food and Water Watch, based here in New Brunswick, just about 5 miles away from the site of this power plant. I am against it. I'm also against your proposal to double the emissions there by building another gas-fired plant right next to it. Earlier today, I received an alert just over an hour ago that the most recent hourly estimate of ozone reached 105 AQI, which is unhealthy for sensitive groups. I want to ask if CPB's done any analysis of the number of days where the air quality here has been unhealthy since your plant came online. And if you haven't done that, I would ask you to do that. Isn't it true that the Woodbridge Energy Center emits massive amounts of ozone precursors, specifically volatile organic compounds and NOx, which lead to more ground level ozone, making it harder to breathe, harming human and animal health, and causing premature death? I also don't appreciate the parts of the presentation that were misleading and inaccurate. Specifically, you mentioned facilitating the cleanup of the waterfront and the development of a waterfront park. I'd like to ask if you or any of your colleagues have been to the waterfront recently, and if there is a park there or not. I'll note for the record, I had an email with Thomas Rumsey on May 25th, 2021. He works for you, and he distanced himself from the waterfront park issue, saying, quote, "The waterfront park and access to the Raritan River is a township matter. And for the record, there is no waterfront park." That is false. I'd like to know how many hours per year on average you're operating this power plant. I'd also like to know if the usage is far below capacity, then why are you applying to build a second power plant? I'd also like to know why your proposed second power plant is dirtier than the existing one. I'd also like to know if there's any additional infrastructure you're going to need to support the power plant. Isn't it true there was a serious incident involving the high tension lines near the site of the first plant in September 2019? And what information can you provide about that incident? What steps have you taken to prevent repeat incidents? And I'd also like to understand about your company's program, CPV Educates, where you developed a curriculum in Woodbridge Public Schools to indoctrinate students to support your gas power plants. Why did you do that? And I'd also be curious if your company has any comment on the guilty plea and conviction of Braith Kelly, the man who brought this power plant to Woodbridge. I understand he misrepresented whether or not he had obtained an ethics opinion regarding the decision to hire someone to the CPV Educates program to gain political influence in the state of New York, and used a third party to disguise payments to that person's spouse. And I really would ask you to rethink this proposal. We don't need more gas power plants. We need you to actually cut emissions. You're making it harder to breathe here. You're harming human health, and we already have more than our fair share of pollution. So I would ask you to, respectfully back off of Middlesex County, and please do not pursue additional plans for fossil fuel power plants in our area. We've already got it bad enough here, and the last thing we need is more. You need to figure out how to cut the emissions, not double them.
Thank you, Charlie. And next we will go, the next person on my list I see is Brian Hudson. I think you are on mute. Let's see if I can. You're still on mute. All right. I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to come back to you. Let me just make a note. Right. And so we will go to Julian Ferrara. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you so much. My name's Julian Ferrara. I'm from Perth Amboy. I was born and raised a mile from your current Keysby site, and my family and where I spend about half of my time is just 2 miles from the power plant. I'm an educator and I work with young children, and having been born and raised in this area, I have respiratory issues and was out with children on one of these high ozone days, and got into a coughing fit walking uphill and had to retreat indoors. And I'm working with young children whose lungs are developing. So I'd love if there was dialogue. I'm sorry I came in a little late, but I'd love to know if you're a father or an uncle and how you would feel about growing up and raising a child in the proximity of such toxicity. And unfortunately, you can be farther away, and we're all going to have to deal with the superstorms that we've already witnessed. And I wonder if you're aware that in Woodbridge, people lost their lives to Hurricane Ida, and continuing to burn fossil fuels in this region not only impacts our health adversely, those of us right underneath it and around it, and but it's a matter of everyone now. And I just want to call on your moral conscious. Responsible energy starts with us is the byline I see at the bottom of your slides, and I would love that to be true. I would love to see that enacted, and others have already pointed out it's on your website. And so why do you have renewable projects in remote areas of Pennsylvania and in these densely populated urban areas have some of your dirtiest projects? I would love the answer to reiterate and echo the question about CPV1 being at capacity and why there are plans on the docket for another second plant, why that is not being proposed as a renewable plant, and just in general, how you're being accountable to the health of local residents and honestly, the health of your own future and your children's futures. That's what responsibility means to me. And I know, I'd love to ask you, because I'm sensitive to the fact we are all doing the best that we can given our circumstances, and to just really sit with the part you can play in the position you play to truly take responsibility for healthy, clean energy and viable futures and viable communities for those whom you basically profit at the expense of. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie Ann. I do want to give, says Brian Hudson on the, there we go. Oh, now it says that it's not, you're not showing up as muted, but I'm not hearing you. I'm very sorry about that. So next we will go to James Dabrowski. I hope I'm saying that, and apologies if I'm not saying it correctly.
No, you said it right. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, James Dabrowski. Can you hear me well? Okay. Lifelong resident of Woodbridge Township, also a proud member of our Perth Amboy area branch NAACP, representing Woodbridge, Perth Amboy, South Amboy, Sayreville, Carteret. I'm also a Perth Amboy public school educator of 17 years. But in my capacity as an NAACP member, I was actually elected by our branch to attend the national convention we just had last week down in Atlantic City. And we were all the delegates were given this book of our resolutions for the 2022 year. And there's a whole section on environmental justice. And I'll just read a short little paragraph from there. Be it resolved that the NAACP at the national level calls upon all member nations of the UNFCCC, and that's the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, particularly the United States, to employ equitable and just climate emergency actions, including but not limited to set aggressive targets to transition the economy away from fossil fuels in alignment with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, designated pathway to decrease greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, keeping global warming below the 1.5 degrees Celsius preferred limits of the Paris Agreement, and end all new fossil fuel exploration and extraction immediately, period. So the NAACP at the national level, at the state level, and of course at the local level, the Perth Amboy area branch, which I'm speaking on behalf of, we stand firmly against the renewal of CPV1's air permits. We stand firmly against the proposed CPV2 plant. I wish we could ask questions. It seems like we're just having public comment tonight. But yeah, the oldest civil rights organization in the nation stands firmly against renewing these permission to pollute the air. We encourage CPV to switch over to renewable energy and move away from these antiquated fossil fuel burning energy methods. Our planet cannot deal with it anymore. We are destroying our planet, our future generations. We've got to do so much better. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, James. And I do want to give, this was sent through the chat, so I do want to give Rachel Dawn Davis a chance to speak. Not hearing anything. We will move down to Pranita Bijlani. Again, I'm very sorry if I mispronounce your name. I feel your pain with my last name, so please
No,
feel
that's
free.
totally fine. You pronounced it properly. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. My name is Pranita Bijlani. I live in the city of Rahway, about 6 miles from the power plant. I have a close family member who has severe asthma that seems to have gotten worse in the last few years. I'm also a public school teacher in one of the more than 200 public schools within a 10-mile radius of the plant. My school is within 7 miles. And many of my students have asthma. I would say of all health conditions, asthma is the most common illness among my students. I'm wondering what data you have on the health impacts of emissions of this plant over the last 5+ years of its operations, specifically on children's developing lungs, as well as other impacts. I'm wondering specifically about the 148 tons of nitrogen oxides that are emitted that directly contribute to the creation of ground level ozone. The American Lung Association released its 2022 State of the Air report showing New Jersey continues to have some of the most polluted air in the nation. 6 counties in New Jersey earned Fs for ground level ozone pollution, including Middlesex County, which has repeatedly been on the failing list. Ozone directly affects our lungs, causes children to have asthma attacks, and can even kill people who have respiratory diseases. And I'm wondering how CPV is addressing the ongoing contributions your plant makes to this problem. I'm also concerned about the 99 tons of particulate matter emitted by your plant. And I know a high percentage, I wonder if you could tell me what percentage of that particulate matter is less than 2.5 microns, and what research you've done on what impact that's having on human health. I'm also interested in whatever research you may have done on how far that smaller particulate matter can travel. So what is the full measure of the area in terms of diameter of the communities that are affected? Like how far is that particulate matter traveling? I also know that that small 2.5 micron or less particulate matter can travel deeper into your lungs. And I'm also wondering if you have done any research, any data collection on the health impacts of that smaller particulate matter, and what efforts are you making to mitigate that high percentage of small particulate matter being emitted from your power plant? Additionally, I'm concerned about the 33.4 tons of volatile organic compounds. A January 22 National Institutes for Health article evaluated atmospheric VOC pollution characteristics and did a health risk assessment and concluded that the quantitative assessment of risk sources showed that motor vehicle exhaust and fossil fuel combustion contributed relatively high carcinogenic risk. So I'm also concerned about the volatile organic compound emissions. Are you familiar with any studies that deal with the carcinogenic risks of atmospheric VOCs, or have you conducted any independent research on this? In addition, I know that your plant is
just a 3-minute warning.
Okay. I'm also concerned about the 10 tons of hazardous air pollutants, including formaldehyde and lead, which are known to cause cancer. There have been studies done that have shown clear links between these types of hazardous air pollutants and cancer. So again, what are you doing to mitigate that risk? What research are you doing about the risk that has already been posed by the emissions over the last 5 years? Thank you so much for listening to my comments.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Lindy Stork.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, good. The camera doesn't work, but as long as you can hear me. Okay. Hi. Yes, I also noticed that you referred to yourselves as, responsible energy producers. And there was a comment in one of the slides. It said, wasn't sure in what capacity, incorporating renewables. it didn't say how renewables would be incorporated. This would, okay, here's my point. I think this would be an ideal place to incorporate some renewables and actually bring the level of pollutants down. I live in New Brunswick, longtime New Brunswick resident, about 5 miles away, and longtime public school teacher also. And I noticed over the course of my teaching career, I went from having maybe one kid with asthma in a class to having half a dozen kids with asthma and severe asthma, missing school with asthma. This is really serious. And I know, your plant alone isn't responsible, but this is kind of the definition of environmental justice. This is what the whole environmental justice movement is about. The consequences are falling disproportionately upon, and I should mention that the classes I'm referring to were 95 to 98% minority and low income students. So, for it to have increased like that, 5-6-fold in a couple decades, I mean, it's obviously a severe problem. I'm not going to relist all the contaminants that the previous speaker referred to that contribute to asthma, COPD, all our respiratory illnesses. But and it seems that when you say helping solving communities' energy challenges, well, first of all, with seven is the proposed one, 6 power plants already in our county, I don't think we're lacking for energy. I think the challenge is to mitigate the health effects on our population. And when we refer to giving back to the community, I mean, I suppose some of that money could be used to treat the people that got sick from the pollution. But I notice it's only going also to Woodbridge. It's a very narrow definition of community to just give back to Woodbridge charities and Woodbridge apparently, Woodbridge approved it. Their mayor said you can build 6 if you want. But I heard a couple of Woodbridge residents tonight that are not in agreement, and certainly all of us around Woodbridge need to still breathe the air, and we're not getting anything back. Also, the mayor referred to any other adverse health effects being worth it because the radioactivity was being cleaned up. And then in the next breath, he said it had not been cleaned up. So, much less turned into a beautiful public park with hiking trails that we can all go and enjoy as county residents. I would want to know what is the status even with that? Is it still radioactive? That's what he seemed to imply, that this big trade-off had been worth it to get rid of the radioactivity, except we didn't get rid of the radioactivity. That was confusing.
This is a 3-minute warning, just in case.
Okay, well, that's pretty much what I had to say. I don't see the trade-off being worth it. I don't think this solves our community's energy challenges. Our challenge is to stay healthy, clean up our environment so that our children can be healthy going forward without having to move into a less heavily burdened county of our state. That's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy. Next on the list, I have Holly Cox.
Hi, my name is Holly Cox. I'm a 24-year Montville, New Jersey resident. I'm very worried about the quality of our air here in New Jersey and what we're doing to address the climate crisis. Look around you. It is impossible to ignore the climate crisis now. Hottest days on record in all of history. Look at the heat waves and lack of rain here in New Jersey and Europe now with temperatures around 105 degrees for weeks. People and wildlife and plants can't survive these temperatures for long. New York City subways flooding and people dying in basement apartments. Barely containable wildfires across the entire globe. stronger and scarier storms, droughts, 1 million species, including bees, threatened with extinction, and now a war in Ukraine funded by fossil fuel money. Climate scientists tell us we have only approximately 7 years to drastically cut our emissions to keep our planet habitable. And you want to use this time renewing your permit and building another climate-killing plant. The need to act on climate is urgent, and our leaders, including you, are failing us with old-fashioned, lazy thinking of just renew the air permit and build another dirty plant. So my main question is, how do you justify renewing your air permit and building a second fossil fuel plant in light of the climate emergency unfolding all around us? Even if these plants are allowed to be built, they are likely to become stranded assets as the climate emergency intensifies. Allowing you to renew your air permit and to build a second plant is going in the wrong direction and committing New Jersey to decades more pollution and climate-destroying emissions. As more and more climate disasters occur, the need to transition to clean, renewable energy is becoming more and more obvious. At this point, fossil fuel plants do not make financial sense. You said you build solar and wind facilities, so why aren't you building one of these renewable energy facilities in New Jersey, especially in this overburdened community? How do you justify this under New Jersey's EJ law, environmental justice law? Also, I heard from the mayor of Woodbridge that the land around the CPV plant is radioactive. What areas are radioactive? How and when are you going to clean this up? And by the way, whatever happened to the waterfront park you were going to build in connection with CPV-1? Your CPV plant is one of the largest climate polluters in the state of New Jersey, spewing 2.3 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions into our air every year. Woodbridge residents bear the brunt of this pollution. Have you done any research on the health effects of your emissions on nearby residents? Do you have data on the air quality around your plant? Further, there are 223 New Jersey public schools located within a 10-mile radius from your proposed plant. What responsibility is CPV taking for the well-being of school-aged children whose organs are still developing? In light of all this, I ask you to please be forward-looking. Wake up to the reality of the climate emergency and reconsider your permit renewal and second proposed Woodbridge power plant. If a study reveals that more power generation is needed, I urge you to please seriously consider transitioning CPV-1 to a renewable plant and building CPV-2 also as a sustainable plant in this already overburdened community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Holly. Next on the list is Siobhan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, hello.
Hello?
Who is that?
This is Rachel Davis. Sorry,
Oh, okay.
This is Rachel Dawn Davis. I had been in queue earlier, but didn't realize I had to do *6.
Oh, sure. If you don't mind, I will have Siobhan go just because I said her name, and then we can go to you as long as
No worries.
that works
Yeah.
for everybody. All
Perfect.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Siobhan, I just need you to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm Siobhan Gibbons and I'm in North Brunswick, and my comment just follows exactly on what Holly just said. My question is just really very simple. Not just how do you justify continuing with this gas-powered power plant and plan to spend money building a second one. Have you looked into using that money for the second power plant? Use that instead for what Holly just suggested. Use that instead to convert the first power plant and maybe then put a renewable second one as well. That would be good too. But there obviously you have money. CPV has money. So my question is, why is that money not being used to number one, since we know that having renewable power plants is the priority? Thank you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Next, we will go to the phone for Rachel. Thank you for holding on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Okay, thank you. I'm Rachel Dawn Davis. I am currently the Public Policy and Justice Organizer for Water Spirit, a ministry of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Peace. I'm also echoing David Hughes' question regarding energy necessity and the air emissions data specifically. I studied Rutgers in New Brunswick and I live in Monmouth County, and I'm now working with Rutgers on green infrastructure and stormwater management because of the intensity of the storms of late and the disproportionate impact on the archaic systems that have perpetuated environmental racism throughout the history of New Jersey. And also, we're doing work in the Perth Amboy area, again, to install green infrastructure and provide alternative opportunities and support when we know that these storms are going to happen, are happening, and are not being stopped by New Jersey leadership anytime soon, unfortunately. But we can make a different story. So why not make solar happen in New Jersey, CPB? We appreciate your leadership in renewable energy elsewhere. Frankly, the governor needs help in this way, and it would be a breath of fresh air for all New Jerseyans that we could focus on less risky investments such as dirty gas. I want to echo the need for honesty with respect to what would be the waterfront park and ask, please, for CPB to let us know the status. What is the status of this waterfront park? The EJ rulemaking opportunities are slim, and tonight was the same time as one of the last remaining ones. So why not schedule outside of this known time period for this, especially given the opening talking about the support for environmental justice, CPV? Why didn't you schedule it outside of that time? I spent over a decade educating communities about the costly short-term decision of hydraulic fracturing infrastructure, or fracking, which is specifically driving the climate crisis and using copious amounts of fresh water we don't have. We are experiencing a climate emergency. The world's on fire, as has been shared earlier this evening. Kids, especially those in New Jersey, are aware of climate chaos. There are those who are wealthy and those who live in close proximity to gas infrastructure, such as compressor stations. Air permits should not be allowed to advance in 2022 for methane leaking fossil fuel. There is a study in Pennsylvania done capturing data from children over the past now 12 years near fracking operations, and the results were clear: asthma, cancer, and death. Days off work and out of school, and doctors and appointments, treatments, medicine, funerals, they're all very costly. Do you know how many schools are within the 10-mile radius of the plant? Can we have access to whatever data you may have collected regarding health impact data since you've been operating? And then again, is there any before and after air quality data that's been captured? And if so, we would like to have you and highly suggest you make that public. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rachel, for the comments. And just want to make sure I'm looking at the right list. The next on the list is Stephen Mitchell.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Air pollution and a climate crisis have been literally killing people. Competitive power ventures needs to find ways to cut down on these emissions in Keesby, not double them by seeking permits to build another unnecessary major power source of pollution. Also, since this particular hearing is for a renewal of the current permit, what other ways can competitive power ventures reduce the carbon emissions for the current power plant that is being considered up for renewal? That's all I have to ask.
Thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome.
I believe that concludes everyone who raised their hand or put something in the chat, but I do want to give this opportunity if anyone else, anyone additional has something to say, that I definitely want to make sure that we hear them. So please feel free to speak. I'll try to referee it so that we have one at a time. Oh, I see David Horan. Again, apologies if I mispronounced your name.
No problem at all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Indeed. Hello, my friend. I suppose I'd only ask one question to you directly, and that is, do you think your paycheck will follow you into hell? And that's all I have.
Thanks, David. Next, we will go to Bernadette. Bernadette, you are on mute.
I think most of the questions I have already been stated, but I did want to reiterate that climate change we are in an emergency situation now. We cannot afford to have any more fossil fuel projects.
Bernadette, we're having some trouble hearing you.
Okay, there are so many health risks involved, and I would like to be sure that there are health impact studies being conducted around the power plants, and definitely the second power plant should not be built. Renewable energy, if you could convert or make it the other plant into a renewable energy source, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. Next on the list is Amber.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, as mentioned by Bernadette, that a lot of the points I want to bring up were mentioned. But I do want to state that, you know, a lot of the communities around the Keysby power plant are overburdened communities. And we definitely do not need this power plant. We definitely don't need another one. And the fact that, you know, we don't have the research and the data for, you know, what's going on here with the state of the air and state of the pollution is really alarming. And I understand why, because you don't want to give us that data. You don't want to show us the truth. The matter is that, you know, this power plant, like many other power plants across New Jersey, are harming our communities, are harming, you know, our kids, our elderly, our immunocompromised. And we need to make sure that we're putting the community first and we're not thinking about just money. And so definitely, please take my, you know, points into consideration. It's important we push forward our community and we think about the people that live there day in and day out. Thanks.
Thank you, Amber. That appears to be the end of the list. I am going to leave the meeting open for another 15 minutes in case anyone else is able to join. But at this point, for everyone who's here, I will. This can conclude the meeting. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to keep it open just in case. But if this does conclude the public information session on the Woodbridge Energy Center Title V renewal, so you're free to hang out with me. But otherwise, we will see you next time.
When is the next one?
Not been scheduled.
Okay, but there will be another public hearing?
This is, I believe, this is the only public information session for the renewal at this time.
Okay, so you won't see us again soon. Respectfully, sir, I think we'd appreciate answers to the questions that were raised. So since we've got the time, could you please engage with us and give us some answers, some responses?
I'm sorry. I said at the beginning, I'm not going to be answering questions and providing feedback. I'm happy. I'm happy to end the meeting if that would be more useful. I do want to give people a chance to speak if anyone wasn't able to join, but.
Where would we go for feedback? Like, where would we go for feedback? Will there be any feedback?
Yeah, what's the point of us speaking out if you're not going to answer any of your questions? That doesn't make sense.
We are submitting all of this to the Department of Environmental Protection.
Okay,
and then we take it from there. And then they will take it from there.
So will you provide responses?
We will be coordinating with the Department of Environmental Protection. That's literally all I can say at this point.
Okay, I was told by the Department of Environmental Protection that it's your responsibility to collect the comments and to respond to them. So if we're not getting the responses tonight, those of us who took time out of our day to be here, when and where can we get the responses?
That is determined by the Department of Environmental Protection.
Excuse me, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not going to answer the questions tonight. I understand, because basically they're putting your face and you're not prepared for them, and understandably so, as is probably the remaining people. Since I'm on the phone calling in, I can't see who's in the room. However, to the point of the other individuals who've asked the questions, a number of these questions can be answered directly on your website as a marketing tool, if nothing else. So it would certainly behoove you to talk about the things that you are doing to mitigate, if you are, and I'm only saying if you are. However, I don't see any reason why you would be unwilling to answer any questions to the community, not immediately, obviously, but, you know, in a timely manner, because, of course, you're in our community, having a power plant operating in our community, and, well, I understand we need electricity and energy. I also feel that it's a positive thing for you to do that because, as you obviously have spoken about, you do have alternative resources, designs for alternative energy resources, and you certainly could put those into the system right here in Middlesex County, Woodbridge, Keysby, and elsewhere if you were not renewed, because obviously you want to make money. So why not go for it? Thank you.
I appreciate it. I'm not trying to be combative or like give you the slip or anything like that, but we're trying to be respectful to what the DEP, their process and everything, and we just want to make sure, basically I want to make sure that I'm following the process that's laid out by the DEP. So we are trying to do everything to make sure that we coordinate any and all responses with them, just to make sure that we're following the administrative order as they are implementing it. So I want to be as respectful as possible, and I'm not trying to get out of this, but I just wanted, that is the process that is laid out.
I appreciate your position. It just feels like between DEP and CPV, you're both kind of passing the responsibility onto the other one, and we're not able to get the answers to our questions. You know, some of us have been asking questions for years about this project and your other one. So I would just respectfully, you know, conclude by asking you to come to Middlesex County and meet with us. Would you be willing to do that and come to New Jersey and have a discussion?
We have had public meetings before. I don't know what's on the schedule for additional meetings in Middlesex County. We are in the community. I mean, our plant is right there. But at this point, I'm trying to be respectful to the DEP process and what is laid out in the administrative order.
There's just respectfully nothing stopping you from doing above and beyond what's required of you. And I know, you know, there's no other meeting scheduled. You just said, as far as this process is concerned, this is the only one. So those of us that took time out of our day, thought up good questions, asked them, we don't even know how or when we're going to get responses. And I know that you're, you know, with all due respect, sitting in an office in another state right now, and we would like you to come to Middlesex County and see this site for yourself and to meet with community members. And, you know, I don't see why that can't be done if you're seeking permission to pollute our community further. So just respectfully request you do, you know, continue the dialogue and not end it tonight.
I second that. And, you know, this is John Sidoti from Woodbridge again. I would like to know before I end this call, before I hang up, thank you for respectfully, you know, acknowledging the rules here. But I would like to ask the question: how does this power plant benefit Woodbridge itself? I'd like to know that. If you could answer that question or offer in a response either here or elsewhere or through the EPA or whatever it is you need to do, I would like to know how it benefits my hometown that I grew up in. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. So I do appreciate everyone's time. But at this point I'm going to go on mute. But I will keep it open for about another.
Yeah, just quickly, I think what people are asking for is, this is Siobhan from North Brunswick, what people are asking for is a timeline. When can we expect responses? And I thought I saw someone from the DEP on this call earlier. And so maybe if that person is still here, that person can answer. But I think what we're looking for is like, when should we be looking, when should we be looking out for these answers?
I believe that there is part of the administrative order that there is a time frame laid out in it. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what it is, but I do believe that there is a time frame laid out in the administrative order.
And is there someone from the DEP on this call who could tell us then?
I don't believe so.
There was somebody earlier when I signed on. So he said DEP, but I guess he's gone. Wait a second. Yeah. Yeah, David Pepe. His name was David Pepe. Is he not here now?
I don't see that name on here anymore, but
okay.
Yeah.
So that's where we're looking for, just what the timeline is. At least. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know in the slides it did say that, CPV is part of the community. So being part of the community means to engage in dialogue. So as Charlie mentioned, if you guys could come into the community and have a dialogue where there are responses given to the questions that were asked, that would really, kind of show that you're part of the community, as you said in the slide.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just take this opportunity to say thanks to everybody who came on the call tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
We appreciate you reminding us about the meeting. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Charlie, for organizing us and reminding us, because you've been very helpful in this fight against the power plant, and we deserve more information, and hopefully they'll be able to provide us that information and have community discussions going forward.
Just want to remind everyone that it's still being recorded, just FYI.
Yeah, I hope someone sees this recording, because this is really insulting, to be quite honest. I'm a lifelong resident of Woodbridge. I was told we were going to get some questions answered tonight, but all it is, let us speak and then bang the gavel and bye. That's kind of how it is at some of these meetings in person, and it's not right. Like I said, I'm an elementary school teacher, and we always read the book, The Lorax. If someone like you, hold on, how does it go again, the quote? Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And it seems like CPV is like the villainous corporation in the children's book. Kids know that this is wrong, and you got to do better than the CPV. And I hope the NJDEP, EPA, whatever, will see this and realize that as well, and deny your air permits for CPV1 and definitely for CPV2, because this is really ridiculous, to be quite honest and frank.
It always startles me as well, like what level of wildfire and what we had a tornado in Edison last year, and maybe it was last year or a couple of years ago, it snowed in July and we had a bunch of hailstorms. What level of chaos are we going to be like something has to change?
Well, we have already had 10 days of the last 14 that were over 100 degrees. I have 50 and 70 and 100-year-old oak trees that are dying from this heat wave. I mean, air quality is obviously being affected in this valley, and just unbelievable. I don't understand what the DEP thinks they're doing by continuing a contract an open contract with a company that's contaminating the air that we breathe, affecting the temperature of the valley, everything.
Tina brought up a good point too about the cumulative effects of, having so many power plants in, the Middlesex County area. I guess between Middlesex County and, between Sayreville and Linden and Woodbridge. What is it, 6, Charlie?
Yeah, there's 6 fossil fuel plants in Middlesex County already, 4 in Sayreville and 2 in Woodbridge, including the one we're here on tonight. If CPB gets their way, they'd be building a 7th.
And then there's another couple in Linden.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if the DEP is going to be listening to the full recording, but it would be nice if in future hearings they had someone available to answer questions that CPB is not willing to answer. Because it looks like CPB is really committed to only providing the minimum effort. So if there's any DEP person, please, join these calls and listen to the community. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I put in the chat the email of Scott Gelberg, who was just on the line with us from CPB, and also a contact that Charlie had given to me from the at the New Jersey DEP, Francis Stites email. So I just submitted a copy of what I said here tonight to both of them and asked, my introduction to my email that they respond to my comments and concerns in writing to my email. So maybe who's ever still on the call, if you have something written or, you want to write something up, send it to them, and maybe we'll see if we can get some answers that way.
It's a good point, Holly. You can see on the screen they are accepting comments through August the 27th, and you can email them to, I think it's Scott at CPB.
Yeah, thank you, Holly. It looks like the chat has been muted, Holly, so I can't see your, but thank you for,
really?
Thank you for saying it, over the microphone so we could all hear it. Yeah.
I can see it myself. This is Pranita, by the way.
Oh, you can see the chat? I'm clicking on the chat and it says the meeting chat is muted, at least for me.
Oh, that's strange. Yeah, I can see.
Do you want me to just read them out to you and jot them down? Read out the emails?
Yeah, it's showing. Yeah, it says names. So-and-so no longer has access to the chat. I wonder what that means. It gives specific names of people who no longer have access to the chat. Strange.
Do you want, should I read out the emails? Does anyone want them? Or Charlie, do you want to follow up and ask people to send their comments, with these emails?
I will follow up and I'll share the recording with everyone who couldn't be here. So yeah, thank you again for those who could. Thanks for those who were, brave enough to speak and craft good questions. We hope we get some answers one way or another. We deserve nothing less.
I tell you what, you should send them the bill, the added up bill for the asthma treatment, the cancer treatment, and everything else, whether they pay it or not.
I just wanted to say this is going to be open for 3 more minutes. And I did say I don't have the ability, or I don't know how to mute. I don't know why people are muted in the chat. I just want to make that clear. I do not believe that I have that ability. So I just want to say that I haven't restricted anyone or anything like that.
Charlie, thanks, man. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you all.
Yeah, thank you, too.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, everyone. And just reiterate the invitation. Please come to Middlesex County. Let's let's not end the dialogue tonight. This is too important to just have an hour and a half and kind of a one-way conversation here.
So true, Charlie. So true. I'm not even hungry. Be well, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.
Thanks for everyone that is joining. At this point, I am going to close out the Microsoft Teams meeting. I do want to encourage everyone, if you have additional comments or if you have the comments written that you gave today, please email them to my email address. It's skjellberg@cpv.com. And I do also want to refer people to Administrative Order 2021-25. I will drop it in the chat for anyone that's still here, just so that it might, hopefully, will answer some questions. So I'll drop that in the chat and then I will close out.
All right, good evening, everyone.